Using the Marxist film theory, I'll be comparing Hirokazu Koreeda's 2018 film, Shoplifters, with Bong Joon-ho's 2013 film, Snowpiercer. Developed by Karl Marx, Marxism is both an economic and political theory that focuses on class representation. In early cinema, key filmmakers such as Eisenstein, Pudovkin, and Vertov adopted this theory to depict social conditions and promote different solutions. Modern-day film theorists use the Marxist film theory as a lens to examine the inequality between classes. Film theories explain the nature of motion pictures and how they produce emotional and mental effects on the audience. The Marxist film theory is a valid film theory because it generates fear and leaves the audience with a new outlook on class conflict. It is also considered as a key film theory because it is developed out of philosophy and literary criticism and has a long-established history. Alejandro Inarritu, a Mexican author who frequently explores themes relating to class inequality, describes cinema as a mirror by which we often see ourselves. Films reflect society, and studying them with a Marxist lens can deepen our understanding of the social divide between the rich and the poor. In an age where most economies incorporate characteristics of capitalism, analyzing films with this lens is paramount. In recent years, as the global wealth gap widens and the concepts of privilege and deserving take up residency at the forefront of culture, it is worth exploring films that satirize the disparity between classes as they broaden our perspectives on class struggle and highlight uncomfortable truths. Shoplifters illustrates the oppressive upper class and the inability to move up in society through the perspective of lower class protagonists. As a visceral examination of poverty, greed, innocence, and the lack thereof, the film tells the story of a family living on the fringes of society. At the end of the film, it is revealed that none of the family members are connected by blood. Instead, they are united through their shared struggles and their desire for wealth. Snowpiercer is a social commentary on class warfare that epitomizes class divide. The film takes place on a perpetually racing train that shields the loss of humanity from a failed attempt to counteract global warming. While members of the elite live in obscene luxury at the front of the train, the semi-starved masses live in close-packed squalor in the tail. Snowpiercer follows the proletariat's journey as they fight the bourgeoisie in the hopes of improving their quality of life. Shoplifters commentate on the decreasing standards of living, the rapid rising poverty, and the unequal distribution of welfare in Japan. Director Koreeda says his films represent an implicit criticism of modern Japan, tackling themes of isolation and social invisibility that stem from the rapid rising poverty. Since 2013, social welfare has been slashed by 13.7%, amplifying the unequal distribution of welfare and driving poverty rates to 15.7%. Snowpiercer addresses the lack of social mobility and the growing income disparity in South Korea and the United States. Last year, unemployment rates jumped to a 9-year high in Korea. As such, people in the working class struggle to make ends meet, resulting in difficulty climbing up the social ladder, leading to social polarization and a widening wealth gap. This video essay will investigate how Shoplifters and Snowpiercer call for social and economic change. By comparing and contrasting the two films, one can gain more perspective on the disparity between the rich and the poor, how different directors address this divide, and how it intertwines with a broad array of other global problems. Hirokazu Koreeda and Bong Joon-ho both use expressive cinematography and meaningful mise-en-scène to advocate for social and economic change. In Shoplifters, wide shots are used to illustrate the lower class's isolation from society. Wide angles are often used to establish setting. However, director Koreeda uses them to emphasize the alienation of the lower class in the modern world. These shots create negative space within the frame, making the subjects seem insignificant compared to everything around them. The director purposefully uses them to underscore the marginalization of the working class, alluding to the recent slashes in welfare in Japan. Snowpiercer draws attention to the lack of social mobility in South Korea and the United States by juggling between tense, shaky takes and clean, long takes. Handheld shots generate a raw viewing experience, which enables the viewers to feel the panic and scramble the characters feel. During the film's rising action, the camera switches to the first-person perspective, underscoring the chaos the lower class endures when fighting to climb the social ladder. Coupled with practical zooms that accentuate impact, these shots immerse the audience and allows them to fit into the lower class's shoes. By contrast, Bong Joon-ho uses smooth mounted shots to allow for reflection. During the massacre, he uses a high shutter speed with the intention of slowing down the clips in post-production. Slow motion reminds the viewers that they are watching a movie and forces them to consider the real-life implications of the scene, where those in poverty are forced to fight the very system that oppresses them. In both films, set design is used to emphasize the lower class's living conditions. The family in Shoplifters lives in a cramped and cluttered environment without middle-class givens such as personal space and beds. The family of 6 shares a house with only 2 rooms. In Snowpiercer, those in poverty existed in squalor and lived with hundreds of others. This imagery is contrasted with the engine room, where the antagonist lives in a spacious and comfortable environment. Bong Joon-ho emphasizes the divide between the classes through the use of color. In the film's opening sequence, 2 people from the upper class travel to the tail end in vibrant fur outfits, which contrasts with the dark, desaturated atmosphere. By the logic of you are what you eat, the working class are the insects of society. They are disposable, dirty, and live a colorless life. Like in South Korea and the United States, the lack of social mobility prevents them from ascending the social ladder. As such, they are trapped in darkness, both physically and metaphorically. However, the film explains that everyone in society has preordained positions, even the rich. Like the tail end, the color scheme of the engine room is muted. There are metal bars which resemble jail cells that symbolically traps them in the engine room. This can be interpreted as a system keeping the rich rich. Using set design, Bong Joon-ho conveys how capitalistic economies restrict social mobility. Without a revolution, the poor will never move up in society. Beyond cinematography and set design, Koreeda also uses editing and pacing to characterize his protagonists. In Shoplifters, Koreeda masterfully uses editing to leave us with a new outlook on class conflict. Through his tried-and-true method of setting up a scenario and a group of characters and then merely allowing them to exist, he develops real connections between the audience and his characters. The slow, deliberate pacing adds depth to the protagonists. It makes them feel as if they are people we may encounter in our everyday lives. Building such connections enables the viewers to empathize and gain a broader perspective on those ostracized by society. Koreeda adds no sudden insertions of drama. He rarely uses non-diegetic sounds and hard cuts, adding to the film's realism and allowing us to develop a genuine connection with the characters. Shoplifters transcends the bonds of Hollywood poverty and the tales of hope found there by exploring the ties that bind us together. The movie can feel relatively diffuse at times. However, upon closer inspection, these anecdotal sequences build momentum and tie into the film's central theme, familial love. Shoplifters redefines what it means to be a family. Instead of being connected by blood, the family is bound by their social and economic conditions. In Japan, the working class has been pushed to society's margins with slashes in welfare and low-wage growth. Koreeda commentates on these issues through the characterization of the protagonists, a disparate group of characters connected by their abandonment from family, jobs, and society. While those in the working class do not enjoy the privilege upper-class families enjoy, they are more authentically connected as they share the same struggles. However, towards the end of the film, Koreeda drastically increases the film's pace. Almost like a plot twist, the characters' desperation and desire to rise up in society overshadows their familial bond and drives them to betray one another. The director thoroughly explores how poverty leads people to act irrationally and how an oppressive system divides family. The pacing ramps up to show how desperate measures could push those in the lower class to abandon the strong familial connections without a second thought. Koreeda truly questions the underpinnings of capitalistic societies that invokes this heightened amount of desperation among the working class. Snowpiercer takes a different approach to advocate for change. Instead of using editing, pacing, or characterization, Bong Joon-ho uses the train as an allegory on the class systems of hierarchical societies, positioning the bourgeoisie at the front and the proletariats at the end. The film is very linear, and the director purposefully uses the proletariat's journey from the left to the right as a metaphor for social uprising. This journey and the fight against the upper class is used to underscore the lack of social mobility in Korea and the US. The traditional Marxist view states that the only way to fix capitalism is to fight against it. However, Bong Joon-ho proposes another ideology. In the film, despite the numerous revolutions, those in the working class continue to live in the vicious cycle imposed on them. Throughout the history of cinema, trains are frequently used to symbolize modernity and progress. However, in Snowpiercer, the train travels on an endless loop. Bong Joon-ho argues that progress under a capitalistic society is purely illusionary, as it will always circle back, just like the train. In conclusion, while Hirokazu Koreeda uses editing, pacing, and characterization to commentate on Japan's social and economic problems, Bong Joon-ho uses an allegory to address the issues of Korea and the US. Neither film ends on a hopeful note, but presents the possibility for hope if drastic changes are made to the capitalistic societies. The two films don't explicitly call for change like traditional Marxist films. Instead, they implicitly call for change by providing perspective into the lower classes' struggle and portraying the oppressive system against them.